Wow, what a great video. And we've got another video with another global superstar coming for you a bit later. Yes, I hope that stirred a couple of thoughts for you, that video from the great Steve Jobs. So it's been an interesting journey, this exploration of motivation, and it was stimulated initially by a feeling that there just wasn't anything out there that really helped us when it came to supporting people with really big decisions in their life, or sometimes even if it wasn't the big decisions, it was the little nagging moments as well. So it's been an interesting time, and we'll tell you more about that later. And we've got an offer for you as well if this is a topic that really stimulates your imagination. We've got something that Sue and I have put together for you a bit later. So stick around till just before the questions and answers at the end. So if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to put those into the chat box, and we'll take those at the end. So a question for you, having watched Steve Jobs. How in love with what you are doing are you? So give it whatever rating scale you fancy, but put some responses in the chat box. Tell us what you think. How in love with what you are doing are you? And I know that for me, there's been occasions when I've found myself doing a lot of things that I don't particularly love. Sometimes for misguided reasons as well. Maybe it was I thought I had to earn specific amounts of money, or I needed to be in a specific location. You know, I think it does vary and it does change for people. So we've got some answers coming in, Sue. So while they're coming in, how about for you? How in love with what you're doing are you?
Well, actually, I was reflecting when the video was playing, and the reason I picked the video is that it was, for me, actually, this whole idea of being fired and then discovering how in love with the role he was, you know, the job he was, and what he was doing was really important. And it reminded me of my own background, my first corporate job, great training, great background. But actually, I just felt like a square peg in a round hole. And I thought that was me. And it's not until years later that I discovered, from moving to the next kind of big role that I did, that actually it was all about the culture, and it was a mismatch. It was a real mismatch, but at the time I didn't know. And for me, this sort of tool that we've got can give tremendous clarity about things that are important environmentally to you, as well as what you're doing and who you're doing it with. And I wish I'd had access to a tool then that may have given me some insights that would have been really helpful, that unfortunately at the time I didn't have, until I'd experienced a different environment and started to then have coaching myself and realize what that all was about.
Okay, thanks, Sue. So we've got a range of answers from 5 out of 10 through to 9 out of 10.
Wow.
And somebody said Google plus 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 plus. So I think we can. If you can guess who said that, then I'll give you your favorite drink next time we meet up. So thank you, Vanda. Right then. So that's what we've done in terms of how in love with what you're doing are you. Now, I wanted to share with you some information that we picked up that LinkedIn have put together. And the first thing they asked people was, around the world, professionals are generally happy with their jobs. As you can see there, very satisfied and somewhat satisfied, total 72% between them, which is quite a significant amount to be in that space. Now, there are lots of people who do staff satisfaction surveys who'd love that sort of rating. But even so, what was interesting about this study was they found that regardless of how happy people were, you shouldn't be fooled by that. And that's because people were still necessarily interested, should the opportunity come along, to take up another job. So let's just ask you the question on the call this evening. Let me just put a poll up for you. Would you consider a good job offer if it came up? Yes, no, or maybe? Yes. Maybe. Okay, so it looks like, Sue, we got 67% yes and 33% maybe, despite the fact that most of the responses, actually it's 50-50, as despite the fact that most people on the call were actually very happy at the moment. So, I think what's interesting there from an employer's perspective is, even if your staff are happy, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that they're not looking around for jobs. So I'm just going to end that poll and come back to the slide here. So the figures here are quite staggering, really. 45%, they're not looking for a job, but they're open to talking to recruiters about career opportunities. 25% are actively looking, and 15% are completely satisfied with their current role and don't want to move. So interesting. Despite the fact that people are happy, they are still not necessarily motivated in their current jobs. Anything to add to that, Sue?
I think for me, one of the things I'm doing at the moment is a lot of work with Ford Motor Company and dealerships, and this totally correlates with the work that we're doing there, which is all around customer engagement as well as employee engagement. So just because people are satisfied doesn't mean to say that they're going to be loyal to you, they're going to stay. They're not necessarily going to be firing on all cylinders. So I think the key here is whether you're looking at this session from a personal perspective, or that you're in a corporate role, an HR or a line management role, and thinking about utilizing this with your teams. How can you get inside the minds of people? How do you find out what's really going on? Because, as you know, staff turnover, staff attrition is very, very time consuming. And in addition, if it's for you personally, if you're not completely firing on all cylinders and you can't quite work out why the fit's not there, then I think that this, the motivational tool that we've got may be something that you could be interested in, because I think it gives you some great insights.
Okay, so the next thing the study looked at was, what were the top 3 motivators and the bottom 3 motivators for people in different jobs. So better compensation and benefits, good work-life balance, and opportunities for advancement were the top 3 motivators. And the bottom 3 were job title, office location, and relationship with managers. So nothing, I think, outstanding on that one. What does make it interesting is the next one. Actually, yes, that's a good point. I'm glad I made these slides up before chatting to you. What's the motivating, demotivating you right now in terms of relationships, environment, activities, and life? So just some 1 or 2 word answers. What's motivating and what's demotivating you right now in terms of relationships, environment, activities, and life? So I'm going to put some words in the chat box there. So what the reason for these specific categories is, it was a sort of a 2-year piece of work that Sue and I were doing, where we researched just about everything that was out there regarding motivation. And these are the 4 categories we came up with in terms of what people measure their own motivation by, in terms of what it's the relationships they're in, or the relationships in work, the environment they're in, what sort of activities consume their time, and what's going on for them in life right now. So let's just have a look at what some of the things you're saying. So work-life balance is an issue there for someone, for Nigel. Motivate, seeing it helps people. Okay, so for Vanda, that motivates her, seeing that it helps people. Jackie, lack of communication from colleagues is demotivating. Nicola says, motivating relationship, spring and new clients. And John, I'm motivated because at last I have the choice about what I do. Fantastic. Nicola, demotivation is problematic relationships with clients, or problems with relationships with clients. Okay, so as you can see, that's a real mixture of things that spread across those four excuse me, those four categories. And as I said, that is why we landed on those. We had 5 categories initially, didn't we, Sue? And then we narrowed it down as we did more refinement and understanding and research around what it was that was specifically motivating or demotivating people. So where things get interesting, of course, is around gender and age. Sue, if you can see that slide, do you want to talk to this one?
Yeah, sorry. Can I? What I just wanted to add, I think, about certainly the previous slide as well as this is a lot of this is around being able to get to an answer quickly. It's about being able to prioritize and focus. So many of you in corporate life will find people invest a lot in sort of the outputs of surveys, trying to find out how they can better motivate their people. The difficulty is sometimes what they put into effect isn't necessarily what people really want. So it's about that prioritization between not just how satisfied somebody is with something, but how important it is to them. And what we hope to be able to help you get clarity and focus on through Motivate cards is that ability to be able to get quickly to the answer, to really quickly prioritize and find out where there's a mismatch or where there's a gap between what's really stimulating you and what isn't stimulating you. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think that's what this slide goes into a bit more detail. So it's not, again, a bit like some of the stuff that we were talking about yesterday around resilience. It's not one size fits all when it comes to the things that motivate people. So part of this study that LinkedIn put together was looking at the difference between millennials and professionals over 40. So for millennials, compensation was the most important motivator. They weren't very interested in work-life balance. And the male millennials are a lot less concerned about having a poor relationship with their managers than millennial women. Whereas the professionals over 40 are dramatically less concerned with money and more interested in a good lifestyle. They're also interested in opportunities for advancement and job titles declines with age. So, their interest in opportunities for advancement and job titles declines with age. So, as Sue mentioned there earlier, without something that's a little bit more discerning around motivation as a tool in your kit, if you like, it's very difficult to make good decisions about what sort of things you might need to do to build the motivation in your teams and across your organization. And what makes it even more fascinating is if you run a global organization, because then there are global differences as well as gender differences and age differences. And as you can see, they're all the ones in pink. So United Kingdom, Indonesia, and Australia were primarily motivated by work-life balance. Finland, Germany, and Canada by a better skill fit. United States, Italy, and China with better compensation. Netherlands, Sweden, Japan, and South Africa with challenging work. Whereas Brazil, Spain, and Russia, it was all about opportunities for advancement. So I hope that what we've been able to quickly review with you and give you an impression of is the complexity of motivation. It's not something that you can literally put 8 labels on and hope that, you know, the population of the world is going to fall into 8 categories. What actually happens is that we may have some key drivers in life, things that are relatively stable, but at any one moment in time, what's motivating or potentially more importantly demotivating us can change, and it changes quite frequently. And that's the conundrum, if you like, that we were working on. Okay, I think that's where I wanted to get to. Oh yeah, so this was the summary that they were putting in the report, was because this was all about recruitment, is uncover what motivates your candidate. But of course, they didn't really have a lot of solutions in mind for people. Okay, so we just want to introduce you to Motivate Cards, which is the project that Sue and I have been working on for the last few years. And a shout out here to the designer, Jasmine Olivia, who put the designs together for us. And the point of these cards is that they cause the individuals that are using them to pause and reflect and have insight and more vocabulary, which is really important, for things that they might otherwise struggle to express. And I was working with a team recently, and there was one person in the team, very quiet, very reserved, and she was really struggling to put her finger on exactly what was troubling her. And what the cards helped to do was give her a lot more vocabulary and ideas and insights as to what it was that maybe she could consider and pull out as part of the conversation. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides for a moment. And now we're going to go to another video which we recorded especially for this evening. And so we've had the global superstar that was Steve Jobs, and now I'd like to introduce you to the global superstar, which is Sue Wellman. So again, there might be a pause while I set this video off and running, but and then a slight pause when we come back, but hopefully we'll see you back here in about 4 minutes and 27 seconds approximately.
This is Motivate Cards. This is the tool that we've created to help clients that we work with from a coaching perspective get clear really around the gap or the mismatch that they're experiencing between how they'd love life to be and what they actually experience life, or what they find life to be. So the Motivate Cards consists of 4 categories. Those real life categories are R for relationships, E for environment, A for activities, and L for life. So those are the 4 card category areas that we work through with clients. So how does it work in real life? Well, what we actually do, we'll turn over the board so you can actually see how this works. You'll notice at the top here that we have a category heading. And in the category heading, we ask the client to put down the activities card. And then they have to rank from 1 down to 12 how they would love their activities, how they love their activities to be structured. And then what we do is we ask them then to rank them in terms of how they experience it. Very interestingly, with one client, what we discovered under activities is that creativity was a really top criteria really for someone. It was really important for this person to have creativity in their workplace. In fact, they'd actually joined a marketing agency, a very creative world, because they believed that their environment and the activities they'd be doing would be creative. In fact, what we discovered from the cards is that actually when they ranked how they experienced it, creativity was actually a long way away. So there was a very, very big gap, a huge gap in fact, between what they wanted and what they were actually experiencing in activities. So if we look at the next category, what's very interesting in the next category is, let's think about environment. And on this particular example, again, we would be ranking in the same way. But what we experienced with this client was, again, very importantly for them, energizing was the top score for them in terms of the environment that they wanted to operate in. Again, when they actually ranked the cards and put down what they experienced, they actually found that it was really down here at number 9, that energizing was far away again in terms of what they truly were experiencing. Now with this client, the light bulb moment was when we looked at the category of relationships. So if you remember back, creativity was a mismatch, energizing environment was a mismatch, and yet they thought they were in the right kind of sector. Now, under relationships, what they discovered was that what they were actually experiencing here was controlling relationships. So their boss was very controlling, and this was what came out as being number one of their experience in the relationships, where actually what they desired was controlling to be way, way down the rank in terms of what they really would have liked the relationship to be like. So this was critical for them to get some insights about, so what can I do? And again, what was very important is when we looked at the life category, we discovered that personal growth, which was number one of their desire, sadly, because of these controlling relationships, ended up being number 11 on the ranking of what they were experiencing in life. And this was creating a huge amount of frustration and heartache for this person, where they thought they were in the profession they wanted to be in, but actually were discovering that somehow there was this huge gap. And then obviously our job is, with these insights, is to coach the client, to help them get clarity and real tangible, practical things that they can do to start to control and influence how they can take this situation forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, so hopefully you'll be rejoining us any second now, and we can continue on with more information. So thank you, first of all, to Sue. Your nomination for an Oscar is secure. You should be fine. And a really clear explanation. So I think before we go on, we'll just check that people are back with us, and then we can carry on telling you a little bit more about the Motivate cards. So if you are back, let us know, and we can carry on. Jackie's here. Anybody else? How are we doing? There is a slight delay. So as people are coming back from the video, yeah, there we go. Excellent. So just Sue and I have got a couple of case studies that will help you to be clear on how these cards actually work. So it was a great example that Sue had in the video there, and one that I had a little while ago is with I was doing some one-to-one coaching with some managers in financial services, both of them working at a retail bank. And when we got round to the life cards, they both expressed really, really clearly when they picked up the health card, and I'll just show you that one there. Healthy, my well-being needs are met. Both of them, as they picked up that one to review it, thought, yeah, that'll be really high, but I'm not getting out to the gym as much as I'd like to. But they expected healthy to be very near the top of their list of priorities. However, as they started going through some of the other life cards, like being recognized and having mastery of activities, feeling secure and balanced, suddenly the healthy card for both of them ended up being 11 out of 12 in terms of priority. And suddenly that was a bit of a light bulb moment for them. Maybe that was why they weren't getting to the gym as often as they'd like. But the great thing about that, it was really liberating for them, because it was no longer something to beat themselves up about. It was just something to recognize that they had other things that were much more of a priority in their life right now. And that's the key. Yes, they like to be healthy. And if you'd asked them the broader question about what motivates you, they might have said, I like to be healthy. But in terms of the problem they were having with that right now, that only emerged when they started to prioritize all of the other aspects of the life category. And the same two people, one of them, actually, as he reviewed all of the categories together, his other big light bulb moment was that he was probably in the wrong career altogether. And so when I was next back in touch with him a month or two later, he'd resigned and had taken up an acting career, which was something that he'd realized he'd sort of put to one side, potentially for no valid reason. And so he'd gone off to become an actor. So the cards are quite powerful. Now, I know that Sue has a story for you, and it relates to this card here, competitive. My performance is measured against my peers. So Sue, tell us your case study.
Super, thank you, Simon. Yeah, I was doing some coaching with JP Morgan, and it was a vice president in JP Morgan. And for him, he's always thought the road to success was through a competitive environment. And in fact, he thought that was what was really driving him. And actually, he had a role change. He moved into a new project role, and he obviously had thought that he wanted and was satisfied that what he was getting was this competitive environment. In this new role, he actually realized that for his success and actually for his real, satisfaction, I suppose, was that actually what he really needed, and I've got the card here as well, was collaborative relationships. Can you see that? That's what he discovered was actually what really kind of turned him on, if you like, and actually is what delivered success for him. He found he needed to really start thinking how he was going to rebuild the bridges that he'd burnt in the past through acting in a very competitive way. How was he going to start collaborating and building trust with people to be able to actually move forward in his role? So actually, I think having that opportunity to again get some clarity around where the mismatches were was really, really important to him. Sometimes we think we know what we want, and what I discover in coaching many people is that actually what they think they want is sometimes very different to what they actually really do want in the end. And sometimes it's being able to pinpoint what's getting in the way of that passion or that love that you heard Steve Jobs talk about earlier.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. Now, for those of you watching, you may not be aware, but Sue's done a miraculous job of getting on the call for us this evening and is actually set up in somebody else's studio. But, thank you for getting here. You might just need to see if you can get a light on there now, Sue, because it's a bit dark.
Okay, is it too dark now? Okay.
Now, it was fine earlier. Can
you see me now?
Thank you. Let us tell you a little bit more about Motivate cards. So as you saw in the video, there are 4 categories, and we call them the real categories of motivation because the acronym is REAL, for relationships, for environment, for activities. Where's it gone? There it is. And finally, for life. And each category has 12 cards in there. So, for example, in the life cards, we were considering all of the latest information on what is it that drives people in terms of their life activities. So Daniel Pink's thinking is in there, Maslow's thinking is in there. Just about everything you can imagine is considered and will be a component part of the 12 cards and the life. Now, the relationships obviously span both work and home relationships, but really the focus of these cards is to help people in a work environment. So in fact, we've found them to be really useful working with teams as well, to help them understand the differences in terms of motivation around the team and what they might want to do about that. But as a coaching tool, we found it to be absolutely brilliant. And it was that I wanted to talk to you about now before we do some questions and answers. So is there something you want to say, Sue? I don't know.
Sorry. Sorry, yes, because I'm away from my office and I'm on my iPad. I'm having to wave. Sorry. What I just also wanted to add to is which was our beginning point. I think when we were creating this was very much. Many of you may have heard of the Wheel of Life, which is a tool I frequently use. great tool, but actually what we found is it's quite one-dimensional. You know, it's sort of, you measure on a sort of how wonky your wheel is, from measuring 0 to 10 as to where your satisfaction is in various areas. And what really we found with the life cards is it's much more two-dimensional, really. It's not just around taking that one sort of snapshot of satisfaction, is it, Simon? It's much more around being able to sort of see the gap between what you really want and what you're really getting. So that was really something I just wanted to add in. So life cards where we started, and then the others we kind of built upon.
Yeah. Okay. We just lost the picture of you, Sue, but we can hear you perfectly, so that's great. Yes, so we wanted to let you know about an opportunity. So as Sue and I have been building this, we wanted to make sure that this had every opportunity to get out there as widely as possible, because there really isn't anything like it. As I said, there's lots of information out there about your core motivational drivers, but nothing that helps you assess motivation in the moment. And so we've put an offer together for you this evening that we'd like to introduce you to. So if this is of any interest to you, then let us know. So here's what the offer is. It's your opportunity to, if you're an existing coach, to add Motivate cards to your armory. And what we're going to do is put together the Motivate card system, which is a pack of the cards, as well as 2 of the boards that you saw in the video. We're also going to put together 2 online tutorials with Sue and I again. And the first one of these will show you how to use these cards with an individual. And we'll get you absolutely fully prepared so that you can go away from that first session and go and use these with a client of yours. Following that, 30 days later, we'll come back together and we'll have a second session where, as well as answering all your questions about your experience of using the cards for the first time, we're also going to show you how we use the tool with teams, because we've used them in the past for team building, not just in the past, we're using them right now with teams to help them build stronger relationships and a better understanding of what it is that's motivating each other. So we're going to put all that together as a package. And what I'm going to share with you now as I come back here is an offer for you to consider whilst we take the Q&A. So let me just put that there. And hold on, let me just stop that, sorry. Motivate cards, load, and display the offer. Okay, there you go. So if you follow that link, that will take you off to another page which you can read in more detail after the webinar. But I would recommend you click on that now so that it's there for you to read after the webinar. And again, if you're watching it on the replay, click on it, and then when the webinar finishes, you've still got access to it. So as I say, it's a 2-part tutorial process. Sue and I will take you through the process of becoming Motivate Cards coaches, and then we'll leave you to it. Go and get some experience, and then come back and we'll tweak and look at different opportunities for you together. So that's the plan with the Motivate Cards offer. Okay, I think at that stage we'd like to just offer you the opportunity to ask some questions, and we've got a question already I can see here from Nicola. I'm not sure if Sue's still with us.
I am.
You are, great. So I'll read out the question and then we'll both have an opportunity to answer this. So Nicola says, is your experience that most people are not clear about what really motivates them? And if so, what do you think is the cause? Well, I'm absolutely certain on the first part of that, Nicola, which is lots of people don't know what really motivates them. And that's the beauty of a system which forces people to rank order the various components of motivation, because it does get them to stop and think. And actually, people do tend to distribute the cards relatively quickly. So there must be something going on in their subconscious that the cards draw out quicker than I've ever been able to do through questioning. You know, as a professional coach myself, I do a lot of work with individuals, and obviously the key to coaching is the value, if you like, or the quality of the questions. But it does, the problem with a question, or the real challenge with just a questioning approach, is that it assumes the individual has all the words to mind, has all the knowledge at the forefront of their mind, and the cards don't rely on that. They give them some extra vocabulary sometimes to trigger some quick thinking around what's going on. So that's my answer to the first part of your question. Sue, would you like to comment on that? So the question again is your experience that most people are not clear about what really motivates them? And if so, what do you think is the cause?
I agree, Simon, with what you were saying. I also think that people sometimes think they know what motivates them, but I think there's so many external influences sometimes that can cause confusion in us, that's what kind of gets in the way. So I think sometimes peer pressure, or what we think we should be achieving, may be what's leading us down a garden path. And I think what the beauty of this is it kind of, it's a self-assessment tool. So as Simon says, you know, with powerful questions, definitely you can get people to start thinking about what they do want or what they don't want if they can't get what they do want in life. But I think what this gives them is some opportunity just for time out and reflection, and just sorting things is a really smart and kind of fun way of really getting them to start thinking and reflecting of, actually, is that more important, or is it this, and what do I think about that, and how do relationships have a link over into the activities I'm doing, and what about the environment? How does the environment influence the relationships that I've got, and actually, is that the environment I want to be in, or actually am I discovering that I'm one person at home and another person in work? And so I think by actually looking also at the 4 elements, it gives you a great opportunity of seeing things from a multi-dimensional angle, and so I think that really helps when I've done a lot of career coaching with people, either after they've been made redundant, or just because they're at that time of their life where they feel they want to spend some time in a coaching environment, just to rethink life. And I think what they find is that they might think they know the environment that they've always operated in, but it just gives them a great opportunity to think outside that box and really explore. So Simon's example earlier about the financial services manager, he kind of gone down a path, and sometimes we go down a path really early in our life without really knowing that that's the path we want. So we might go down a nurturing, or we go down a financial route. Are we adding value, or is it the finances we want? And sometimes at a point in our life we realize that's totally out of sync with what we really want in life now. So I think as we go through age, experience and maturity bring about changes in us that perhaps before we didn't think were important. So for me, I don't know if that's totally answering your question, but I think sometimes we think we know what motivates us, but this gives you a greater opportunity to see it from a lot of different dimensions. So my apologies if I'm not looking at the camera properly, but I'm sort of trying to talk to you.
Your image has frozen at the moment, Sue, but we can hear you very clearly, so it's great. So yeah, actually, I wanted to pick up on something you said there in terms of the type of activity this is, because again, we all know there are different styles of learning, and there are different styles of access, or different ways that people access information. And because this is a set of cards, effectively, it does encourage people to play a little bit. It does encourage them to think a little bit different, and potentially even a bit strategically about their lives. So I think, in answer to the second part of your question, Nicola, in terms of why do you think people are not really clear, I think it's because most of the time people don't stop to reflect and think about what is motivating or demotivating at any one point. They just wander around with that sort of, I don't know, almost like frustrating feeling and sensation inside them, but aren't able to put their finger on it. That's the phrase that a number of people that we've used these cards with have come back to us with. I couldn't put my finger on what the problem was until we went through the cards. Okay, we've got a great question here from John as well, which I'll just highlight here. I hope that answered your question, Nicola. how do you get motivated to be motivated? Does it depend on the size of the gap between desire and reality and the degree of commitment and urgency? Sue, do you want to take that first?
It's a really interesting question. I often think that what drives motivation to do anything, so when I'll give you an example, is when I'm coaching people sometimes on how to give feedback. I know that some people really struggle with giving feedback to people because they're not quite sure how to do it. Are they going to offend them, or what they're going to do? And I often find what moves people to action is sometimes that the consequences of not doing it outweigh the consequences of doing it. So often we become more brave to try something, or more stimulated to try something, when the consequences of not doing it outweigh the consequences of doing it. So my answer to that question would be that actually you have one life. It's it's not a dress rehearsal. Why spend that life not really firing on all cylinders, and finding that sort of passion and being at one really with what you're doing, and loving it. When you're feeling in harmony and you're in yoga terms, you're centered, and I just think that the consequences of not being motivated to look at closing that gap potentially are much more harming than actually being motivated to do something about it. I think sometimes when we start to be curious and uncovering the uncertainty and starting to make those moves forward, actually we can be really surprised with what we get out of it at the end. And sometimes this enormous mountain that seems impossible to move actually suddenly becomes, there's manageable chunks. So it's a bit like going up Everest. I don't know if you've seen the film, but actually you have different base camps along the way, and it's not always quite as daunting as when you first start off. So I don't know if that's answered your question as fully, but for me that would be the real key.
Yeah, I love the question, John, as well, because actually a lot of the coachees that we've explored Motivate cards with have typically come in with a feeling of lethargy or apathy, and you almost want to shake them to start the conversation, and it's not but it's not a sort of a purposeful thing that's happened to them. It's almost a case of, I often describe it in workshops as they're on a travelator, and then they've suddenly woken up 10 years later or 20 years later and thought, how on earth did I get here? And as opposed to continuing to look back and feel remorse or sorrow for what hasn't happened, we then say, let's reframe that and say, this is the best opportunity right here, right now, to focus on what you do want for the rest of your life. And so, quite often, that will stimulate the start of a thinking process. And yeah, I think you're right too in the second half of your question when you're talking about urgency in particular. Sometimes people get a shove. So they might have a medical diagnosis that says, that there is a limited amount of time ahead of you. So there's a real sense of urgency then about what they want to do with their time. Commitment can often come from an external shove as well. So we do a lot of work with people who are looking to change careers. And this links to another question that's coming up in a moment. And at that point, they're quite often pushed into that decision by their current employer, who says, right, we need you to take voluntary redundancy because we don't have room for you in the organization moving forward. And that's the prompt for a lot of people to get out there and pursue their dreams, their dream job, maybe investing in a B&B or putting a small business together. And that's usually when people find themselves with an amazing opportunity that, of course, was always there. So this is another reason why Sue and I are so passionate about this, because if we can get this knowledge into in front of people at a much younger age, maybe it will give them the opportunity in a very simple way to be reflective of other opportunities. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question, John. And just quickly, there's a question here from Jackie. Can the cards be used by someone to help them make a decision about their career? Well, I think you can tell from the previous answers, absolutely. And one of the first people that I used the cards with, it was actually a huge career turning point for them. And again, they weren't absolutely sure why they weren't happy in their current role. But for them, it turned out to be that it was a bit too rigid and not enough opportunities for them to fully express themselves. And so it was a very senior person, and it was at that point they decided they were going to go out and set themselves up as an independent consultant. So so absolutely, it can be used for making big career decisions. Okay, I can't see any more questions. I'll just put this back on the offer there. So last opportunity for those of you who haven't yet clicked on the button to go and have a look at the full offer. And just to remind you all as we finish, I'll just stop sharing that thing so you can see me. Just to remind you all, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on the replay, please feel free to put some questions in there. We've been answering some questions today from some of the people who were watching yesterday's seminars. So we'll look forward to catching up with you again very soon. So tomorrow, actually, that's what I wanted to finish with. Let me just go back here and then share my screen again. Sorry for this little bit of technical challenge. Present to everyone. So tomorrow at 12 o'clock, bringing vision and strategy to life. This is going to be a really insightful session for those of you who are in roles that are all about bringing the organization's vision or its strategy to life. And you know, we're really lucky to have Malcolm Forrest, David Horn, and Susan Papula here at 12 tomorrow. So look out for the links in your email, and please do share the link back to this if you have other people that you think might be interested in hearing all about you know, the thoughts Sue and I have on motivation. Okay, I think that's it for us this evening. Thank you very much for listening and staying in tune, and good luck for the rest of the week, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye for now.